Don't watch this video if you're sensitive. Seriously, click away right now. Because for the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about a subject that is going to hit you hard. Especially if you're older and your life, your career, your relationships, or your bank account isn't exactly where you thought it would be by now. Society feeds you a comforting lie. They tell you that if you work hard, have integrity, stay loyal, and play by the rules, the universe will eventually reward you. They tell you life is fair. Well, it's not. And I'm going to prove it to you by telling you how doing everything 100% right legally, ethically, and through pure, brutal, physical grind still left me with absolutely nothing at 55 years old. I had to liquidate my house, my car, and my furniture to settle a $1 million debt caused by someone else's pure selfishness. I clawed my way back from $5,000 left in my pocket to building a brand new $1 million business. No days off, no vacations, total legal protection. And then a judge looked at me in the eyes and told me that my contract was completely valid and still handed my life's work to someone else anyway. Why? Because life isn't fair. Listen to me closely. Life owes you nothing. Here's what happened, and here's the brutal reality you need to accept if you want to survive the system. Let's go back to the beginning. I was 45 years old, an age where society tells you that you should be hitting your stride. You should have stability. You should have a foundation. Well, I had all that, but I also had, because of someone else's pure, calculating, selfish act, $1 million debt. A debt that wasn't mine, but a debt that I was legally bound to resolve. Now, unless you have lived through something like that, you cannot comprehend the pure mental and emotional torture of liquidating your entire existence. I had to sell my house, the roof over my head, gone. I had to sell my car, I had to sell my furniture. I had to walk through my house and tag items I built memories around and watch strangers cart them away for pennies on the dollar. I cleaned out my savings, every dollar put away for a rainy day, drained. I liquidated my investments, my entire future wiped out clean in a matter of weeks. When you watch everything you have ever sweated for, every late night, every sacrifice you ever made, when you watch it all ripped out of your hands through no fault of your own, it destroys something deep inside of you. It breaks your trust in humanity. And maybe one day I'll make an entire video dedicated to just that nightmare. But today, I'm telling you this so that you understand where I'm coming from. When the dust finally settled and that $1 million debt was finally paid off in full, I looked at my bank account. $5,000. That was it. 45 years old, no assets, no property, and $5,000. Most people would lie down and quit right there. They would accept defeat, but I didn't. I took that $5,000 and I went to war to rebuild my life. $5,000. I used every single penny of it to open a government-approved nutrition store right in my neighborhood. I knew the risks. I knew I had zero room for error. It took 3 brutal months just for that storefront to generate enough income to stop bleeding money and finally sustain itself. 3 months of staring at the ceiling at night, wondering if the last $5,000 I had left on earth was about to evaporate. But once it stabilized, I didn't coast. I went into a hyper-focused, obsessive grind. For 10 years straight, I gave that business everything I got. I'm talking long hours, 0 days off, no weekends, no holidays, and absolutely no vacations. For an entire decade, my life was nothing but the store, sleep and survival. And in the 10th year, the sacrifice finally paid off. The store declared the $1 million revenue mark. And to celebrate a decade of blood and sweat, I finally did something for myself. I booked a 10-day vacation to the Caribbean, fully paid for by the business. And for those 10 days looking out at the ocean, I remember clearly thinking, I did it. I crawled out of the grave. I won. And here's where the trap snaps shut. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't some naive amateur who got lucky. I knew business was dangerous. So I had taken massive legal precaution to lock down my future. Because it was a government-approved store, regulations dictated that I couldn't just pack up and move the business to another location. Nor could I sell it because it was on my name. I was literally anchored to that physical building. So before I ever poured my life into that space, I forced the landlord to modify my lease with 2 ironclad written clauses. Clause number 1, 2 5-year renewal options, capped at a maximum 10% rent increase. This guaranteed my rent couldn't be spiked to force me out. Clause number 2, the first right of refusal explicitly in writing, stating that if the landlord ever decided to sell the property, they had to offer it to me first. So now I had the paperwork, I had the lawyers who put it in place, and I had the revenue. I'd done everything 100% right to protect my empire, and I felt completely bulletproof. But I had no idea that a signed contract means absolutely nothing when the world decides to break you. Exactly 1 month after I got back from that Caribbean vacation, my illusion was completely shattered. I was standing in my store when a man I'd never seen before in my life walked through the front door. He didn't look at the products I had for sale. He looked directly at me, completely deadpan. And he told me he was the new landlord of the property. And then he delivered the real blow. I had exactly 30 days to pack up my things and vacate the premises, because he was going to take over the storefront to launch his own business. I was totally shocked. And I told him he was mistaken, that I had a valid contract with the first right of refusal. He didn't care. The moment he walked out, I called the landlords. Well, they wouldn't confirm it, but they wouldn't deny it either. They just stammered. So I did the only thing I could do. I hired an attorney. And a few days later, the lawyer called me back with the reality check. The property had indeed been sold 1 week prior. The new buyer had bypassed the entire system by paying half the asking price in cold hard cash. My landlords had taken the money and ran, basically. I didn't back down though. I had a signed legal contract and I took the landlords to court. My attorney stood up in front of the judge and laid out the paperwork. It was black and white. The clauses were clear, the signatures were valid, and the law was supposed to protect me. The case dragged on for months, draining my time, my energy, and more of my money. And finally, decision day arrived. And now I'm going to tell you something. When you've been through the ringer in life, you developed an instinct for when the axe is about to fall. Somehow deep in my gut, I knew the system was going to fail me that day. And I was right. The judge looked at the evidence, cleared his throat, and delivered a verdict that changed the way I view reality forever. He declared that while my contract was 100% legitimate and legally valid, he was voiding the sales restrictions anyway. His reasoning? He said the landlords were an elderly husband and wife team, and this property was their retirement nest egg. If he voided the sale, it would severely harm their ability to retire in comfort. And then he looked at me and he said, since you're still relatively young, you can simply start over somewhere else. Now let that sink in. The law didn't matter to me. My 10 years of blood, sweat, and missed vacations didn't matter. My valid contract didn't matter. The system decided that my life's work was completely disposable because someone else wanted an easier retirement. I walked out of that courtroom with a useless piece of paper, a ruined business, and the ultimate unvarnished truth about how this world actually works. And that brings us to the single most important lesson of this entire story. A lesson that most people will spend their entire lives running away from because it is too terrifying to face. So listen to me closely. Life owes you nothing. Just because you worked hard, just because you have total integrity, just because you are honest, loyal, determined, and sacrificed your youth to a goal, that guarantees you absolutely nothing in this world. The universe is not keeping score. There is no cosmic bank tracking your good deeds and waiting to pay back with interest. And I'm talking directly to those of you who are 40, 50, or 60, and maybe even older right now, staring at your lives and wondering why things haven't gone the way you planned. Maybe you lost a business like I did. Maybe your career stalled out and your finances are a mess. Or your relationships crumbled despite you giving them everything you had. So if you're sitting there waiting for fairness to suddenly show up, just stop. If you're waiting for the people who wronged you to apologize, or for the system to magically fix itself and reward you for your suffering, you're wasting the few precious years you have left. The hardest pill you will ever have to swallow is realizing that you can play by every single rule, check every box, do everything right, and still lose. The world doesn't care about your contract. It doesn't care about your 10 years of no vacations. And it certainly doesn't care about your feelings. But here's the real test of your character. What do you do after you realize that? When the judge tells you to start over, do you lie down and die? Do you spend the rest of your days drowning in bitterness, telling anyone who will listen about how unfair the world is? Or do you look reality dead in its cold, ugly face, accept the brutal hand you've been dealt, and go right back to war? You have to drop the victim's mindset immediately, because no one is coming to save you. The system is built to protect itself, not you. If your life isn't where you want it to be right now, accept that it's unfair and then go back to work anyway. Because the only thing worse than losing everything at 55 is letting that loss dictate the rest of your life. I didn't make this video to give you a fake motivational speech. I made it to shake you out of the illusion of security. And if this hit you hard, good. It was supposed to. So I want to hear from the people who are insensitive. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is the brutal reality you had to accept to finally move forward in your life? I'll be reading the comments down there. Please like the video if you respect the truth. Subscribe if you're tired of the fluff. And I'll see you in the next one.